In this video, we'll continue the setup of MongoDB integrated with Active Directory using Centrify. So far, this is what we've done. We've made sure that SASL is in the system, that the plugin for plain text is installed. We've also tested SASL with a user, in this case Cosmo, and we've copied the we've made a copy of the sshd PAM configuration file into a new file called MongoDB. Another thing that we need to do is, because we're going to be using other a lot, if you look at other in your system, the PAM configuration for other, we want to make sure it looks the same. So we're going to copy, and I'm just going to recall the command here, and we're going to copy the same, but for other. So the reason why we're doing this is because when PAM doesn't know which protocol to use, it will use the other configuration. And if you look at the file, I'm going to go ahead and show you what the file has. It just has a reference to password off, right? And if we look at password off, basically when the system was joined to Active Directory via Centrify, these lines were inserted by direct control right here. So ultimately what that means is that for the PAM modules for authentication, account, session, and password, we're going to use the Centrify directives and shared objects. This means that SASL is not going to be using plain text because the communication between Active Directory and the Centrify agent is going to be encrypted via Kerberos. And also, you don't need to rely on config files to name LDAP servers, because that abstraction layer is dealt with by the Centrify agent, which is Active Directory sites and services aware. So high availability and also caching for offline access. So now what we're going to do is we're going to configure MongoDB. And I'm not a MongoDB person, so I'm going to basically copy paste some commands. I'm going to type Mongo to open MongoDB. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a user. And this is going to be an externally identified user. So in here, I'm just doing some copy paste of some commands. And I'm going to provision our friend Cosmo. Okay, so actually I wasn't supposed to test that. I was supposed to just create the user. So back copy paste. So in here I've created Cosmo as an external user. Now I'm going to exit out, and I'm going to edit the MongoDB configuration files. I'm going to dzdo, and in this case it's going to vi to the etc MongoDB configuration file. I'm going to find auth. One thing that you'll see is that by default authentication is not set up. It's set up as off. I'm going to make it true, and I'm going to insert a couple of lines here. And this parameter is basically what they do is prepare MongoDB for SASL authentication. And one of the parameters that I told you to make note was the direction of the socket. And in here, basically, these are the authentication methods that are going to be used. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file. And first, I need to make sure that SASL is running, right? Because now SASL auth becomes a dependency. So we're going to do service SASL auth and status, and stop it when I hadn't started. So now SASL is on. I could still test it if I need to. With the test SASL auth. So there you go. It's working. If I use even other or MongoDB, it should be working exactly as we expected. So one layer is working as we expect. Now we're going to restart MongoDB. There you go. So now the database has been started, and basically SASL Plain authentication has been enabled. So let's go ahead and attempt. We're going to use this here to try and authenticate with our friend Cosmo. So we're going to do Mongo, and I'm just going to copy this, and let's see what happens. And there you go. So the result was 1. That means success. That tells you that we were able to use MongoDB to authenticate against AD using SASL. And in our particular case, the benefit is that we don't, it's not going to be working with plain text. It's going to be working with Kerberos at the end of the day using PAM. And, we don't need to worry about the Active Directory topology. So next, we're going to add a little bit more of complexity because we're going to use Kerberos. Okay.